Hey, I'm Coach Ashley, and I have Michelle with me here today, and we're going to go through a few different Mythbusters, but we're just going to hit on one today. And one common Mythbuster we want to talk about, or a misconception, is that running is enough for leg strength. So a lot of people out there are like, well, I don't train legs because I run, and it is training my legs in that aspect, so I don't really need to do much more because I do get sore from that as well. So we just wanted to go through this, and I'll let Michelle take the lead on this as far as like leading into it. We have a few points we do want to make about this, but like right off the bat, you made a face. What were you thinking when I said that running is enough for leg strength?
First off, I am horrible at running. I am not a runner, but I have dabbled in bodybuilding. And one thing that we do when we need to lean out is not running. And actually, if you have a coach, one of the things I'll tell you is don't run, because that will make you burn your muscle sometimes, and especially the glutes. So me and most bodybuilders, when you need to lean out, it's going to be either the walking treadmill on an incline, or it's going to be the Stairmaster, because you're still using muscle. And especially think of stairs, you're still having to use muscle to go up those stairs versus running, which is going to really keep you lean. And if you look at most of your runner athletes, they're very lean. So it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good segue into this, and comparing like a bodybuilder per se to, or even like a sprinter, short distance, but we'll go bodybuilder and runner, distance runner. And you do have that distance runner who has that lean figure. Yes, you can't see their muscle definition. They do have a very low body percent fat. However, when we look at running in a coaching perspective, is that we use running for cardiovascular strength. What is cardiovascular strength? That's gonna be that heart strength. Why do we say it's heart strength? Because the heart is a muscle that functions as an organ. It contracts, it contracts, it contracts, it contracts. How do you create strength in a muscle? Well, you can't add muscular resistance to your heart, but how do we strengthen that cardiovascular system? We exercise, and typically most runners are working at a steady state cardio, so it's not excessive and it's a consistent flow. So it's the steady state part of it. Another thing is that cardio, when you're talking about cardio running specifically, it creates what we call muscular endurance. So when we're comparing muscular endurance versus muscular strength, endurance is the ability to do something for a long period of time. So just as we were just talking about, I mean, you ask a bodybuilder to go run a mile, they're probably not going to be able to, because they don't have that muscular endurance. They have a lot of muscle strength. They have a lot of density to that muscle because they're training it in a resistance style fashion. And we'll touch on that point here in a minute. But just looking at muscular endurance, and I think that's probably where the misconception comes from, is muscular endurance versus muscular strength. So running, it's not enough for muscular strength because we're focusing on cardiovascular strength, the heart strength, and we're focusing on muscular endurance, the ability to do something for a long period of time. So when we look at this, and Michelle kind of talked about bodybuilding, if you want to build muscular strength, you have to have weight bearing and resistance training exercises. You have to add load to the muscle. And Michelle kind of talked about that, that low steady state where you're stepping on the stairs. You're adding the body weight as the load into that slow step. You're requiring the muscle recruitment in a higher fashion when you're doing that stair stepper. Now, is it going to increase your muscle mass? Not necessarily, but is it forcing your body to,
maintain?
Yes. So again, that weight bearing resistance exercise, that's the fact. If you're looking to increase leg strength, you do need some weight bearing movements. You do just that resistance training in that fashion. And resistance training could be, you can add bands into that resistance training too, because it's that time under tension with a weight bearing added resistance to the muscle. So last thing I did want to say was running does not provide the resistance to build strength. And I think that's our biggest thing that we're talking about in busting the myth that running is enough for leg strength, is that it doesn't provide enough. It doesn't provide enough resistance to build the strength. It builds muscular endurance, but it's not building the strength. And if you are looking at building strength, you do have to have that weight bearing exercise and that resistance training to it. So yeah, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Again, it just really goes back on your goals. If you're trying to increase size, you're going to have to isolate the muscles. Typically, people go to a gym and they'll do different isolation for their muscles to build size. If you're looking to maintain, you can do that with bands. Bands are really good to just help keep your size and keep you toned. And then typically for me, if I'm really looking to cut size, if I'm getting a little bit too bulky from CrossFit and I'm trying to do like a bodybuilding show, sometimes I just do running because that leans me out all over. So it depends on what my goal is. But usually to lean out, my favorite thing is I like to do the Stairmaster because you're still using your glutes, so you don't have to worry too much about burning your glutes as much as running would.
Yeah. And, you know, if you wanted to get more into the science of this, you can definitely deep dive into the types of muscle fibers there are. And there are short muscle fibers, there are long muscle fibers. One's better for endurance and one's better for explosive strength. Take an anatomy and physiology class. I'm sure you can find something on YouTube as well talking about muscle fibers and types and how they're activated within that muscle. And they all work together, and they have to work together to get a well-performing body. So it's not that we're saying neglect your running. However, making sure, as Michelle just said, knowing what your goals are when you're going into this, and don't neglect cardiovascular strength either, because your heart is what keeps you pumping and keeps those muscles working. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm Coach Ashley. This is Michelle. Catch us here next time for our next Mythbuster.